Welcome to the Inspired Riding Podcast. I'm your host, Beth Lauren Parrish. As a certified riding instructor, remote coach, and rapid transformational therapy practitioner, a powerful form of hypnotherapy, I'm here to remind you to slow down, trust your intuition, and really deeply listen to your horse. And this will make for the best co-creative dances possible, whether you're on the ground or connecting on their backs. Thank you so much for being here, and here we go. Hello there, Inspired Riders. In this podcast, I'm so excited to interview Chemaine Hurtado. Chemaine Hurtado is a United States Dressage Federation Diamond Award recipient. She earned all of the scores to qualify for this award on horses that she trained. Most of them started by her. This means that she worked her tail off for 35 years to earn her USDF Gold, Silver, and Bronze medals and Freestyle Bars from first level all the way to Grand Prix. She had two mares that were her main partners in achieving the diamond, Nova and Belle. She bought Nova at 3 years old. Chemaine had started her, and they learned together to get to Grand Prix. Nova and Chemaine both had 2 kids while on the Grand Prix journey. Corbin and Morgan are Chemaine's children and her favorite people in the world. Nova gave birth to Belle, Winter Nebel, and Rue, our star. Belle and Chemaine danced their way to Intermediate 1. She dazzled many people at shows and Western State Horse Expos, presenting for Charles de Company, Christian Schacht, and Chris Cox. Chemaine was also a dressage clinician at the Horse Expo for several years. Now she lives and trains PRE and illusion horses at Rancho Los Cuatro Vientos in Santa Maria, California, and continues to teach and clinic monthly. I am thrilled to have her on my podcast. And here we go. Chemaine, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited to do this, and I always love, we're horse girls. We always love to talk about more horse stuff. So, so thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Well, we're going to continue on the podcast with the riding instructor interview series. So we're going to do everything to support other riding instructors, which will also help elevate the horse world. So with that in mind, my first question for you is, what do you love most about teaching?
I love helping riders achieve more harmony in their partnership with their horse. I'm really, really, in my teaching, I really try to say your horse is your partner. It's not a robot that does things that you tell it all the time. It's a partner. It has feelings and concerns. And so we have to address those. And sometimes, riders aren't, realizing how their little mistakes are influencing the horse, right? And so I try to bring their awareness to that. And one of the ways I do that is through exercises. I teach the rider the exercise, and then as they go through the exercise, I layer all of the aids until they're doing it effortlessly, and everybody's happy and cruising along real light and effortless. So that's one of my favorite things, is to try to help that communication.
I love that. What are some of the common mistakes that you see?
Oh gosh. A lot of times I see people in my mind, it's not a mistake per se, but in my mind, people focus way too much on their leg. When you're bending a horse, they say, oh, inside leg to outside rein, right? And, in dressage. And to me, it's more about your weight, where your weight is. Cause if you're sitting on the inside seat bone, and I always tell people to think of the rib cage like a hammock and to sit on that seat bone, and then the rib cage will bow out into the outside leg. And then that's your beginning of your bend. And I see so many people sitting on the outside and then kicking like heck with their inside leg, and nothing's happening. So that's probably one of the biggest things that I try to focus on. Is I always tell people to put weight into your little pinky toe stirrup on the inside and squish that pinky toe, and then turn your shoulders. And because if you turn your shoulders first, you fall on the outside seat bone. But if you put your weight first, then you turn your shoulders, then you're increasing it, right? So those are some kind of little things that I like to teach.
I love that. I love that hammock analogy. That's brilliant.
Good. I love to use those analogies, right? Sometimes they work and sometimes they don't work. It's all individual as to what the person experiences. And I think that's one of the funnest things about teaching, honestly, people is learning what their experience is so that you can use it to teach them more easily. I had a client years ago and he was a pilot. And the way pilots talk about being balanced is they say coordinated. And so I would tell him, okay, we need to be more coordinated. And he would then sit evenly, but it was just interesting to kind of learn people's language and help them that way.
Absolutely. We were just talking about that in the last podcast, and it's so important to listen deeply and then get creative to find what actually lights up for that student. So I love that you do that. That's really fun.
Right. So fun. Good.
So how have you shifted your way of teaching over the years?
Oh, so it's so interesting to me, teaching. I always felt like I was just kind of like teaching the periphery, I guess, if you will, with people. And so, you're commenting on what the horse is doing and you're trying to help them ride the horse better, but you're just saying little things, more inside leg, hold the outside rein better, those kinds of things. And then it was interesting because about, 10 or 15 years ago, I was invited to be the dressage clinician at the Western States Horse Expos. At first I was invited to be a demo rider for individual clinicians, and then they asked me to be the clinician. So that was really cool. And when I did that, what I started thinking was, well, I don't want to just teach the person that's on the horse in the arena and let the audience get what they can from it. I wanted to use the person in the arena to teach the audience formula, And so that was kind of a pivotal moment for my instruction learning. And it was really cute because I have 2 children. And they both were my demo riders and a couple other students. And my son, he was doing Western dressage. And I said to him, okay, I have this new method that I'm going to teach at the Horse Expo, and I need to tell you what it is. And he goes, okay. And I said, okay, so it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, I called it. So I said, 1 is you hold your outside rein and you feel your horse's mouth, the horse's tongue moving in their mouth with the outside hand. And I said, and 2, you put your weight into the inside stirrup. And 3, you flex the horse's jaw until they're looking to the inside. And 4, super important, 4, you give that inside rein. So I wanted to build in a give because, most people either hang on too long or give too much, right? So I wanted to make giving a factor. And so he looks at me and he goes, like your kids do. I don't know if you have kids, but I'm sure a lot of your viewers do. Looks at me sort of deadpan and he goes, so bending.
That's such a kid thing to say, isn't it?
I'm like, well, yeah, but so, but I wanted the audience to walk away with a plan, so I wanted to impart it to, 50 or 100 people instead of 1. So that really kind of changed my thought process of how I teach. And so now I try to teach those sequences, like I was mentioning before, put your weight in the stirrup and then turn your shoulders. Because if you turn your shoulders first, then you're doing the wrong thing, And so to me, so many instructors say you have to have the right timing. But what does that mean, for real, like specifically? And so that's what I'm trying to achieve now when I'm teaching.
Oh, I love that. So you're breaking it down in very simple terms, giving it numbers, which is really helpful for people to remember and take away from, especially if you're not riding and just watching. So that's brilliant.
Exactly.
I love that.
So so now it's really fun. I go clinic in Las Vegas once a month and here and there in other areas. And I love, teaching people that. And then I come back again and they go, oh, okay, I've really been working on that and it really works, and thank God. So yeah, so that's been really fun, just to be more specific, instructions and like a formula, like I say, and also to have the sequence of those aids, i.e. timing, is has been a focus.
That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
So Chemaine, how do you stay inspired?
Well, I work on a ranch of about 100 Andalusian horses right now. Right?
100. Oh my goodness.
So every day there's some inspiration.
I would say.
Yeah, we have a whole stallion barn of about 12 stallions, and then we have a bunch of mares and babies, and everything ranging from babies, yearlings, right now yearlings, to I don't know, 13, 14-year-old horses. And my job is mostly to train and either develop or sell the young horses. And so every day I'm inspired by some challenge, that it takes to get through something. The other way I stay challenged, I like to say challenged, but inspired, is I go to clinics still and I learn from other people. Shows, of course, test your ability and your connection with your horse. I love to do demonstrations. That's my favorite thing to do, go out there and do a freestyle or something and show a crowd what dressage is, and hopefully they enjoy it. One of the things that I like to do before a clinic is I'll listen to somebody else's YouTube videos and go, oh, that's a really good point. I need to focus on that in this next clinic. But I also try to remember that, and I'll probably catch on this later, but in one of the other questions, but I was trying to remember when I'm teaching, especially, that I'm teaching the person on that horse that day. And so I try to always ask people when we start the lesson, what would you like to learn today? What is your biggest challenge? What are your short-term goals? Are you going to a horse show? Are you, is there something there that's going to happen that you want to focus on? Because to me, I'm working for them. I'm not doing it for my own ego. I think that's really important, because I think so many people, a lot of trainers especially, get wrapped up in their own ego and they want it to be what they want it to be.
That's a good point. I'm glad you shared that. And that's just how I work with all my students. I'm like, how are you feeling today? How's your horse feeling today? What are your specific goals, if you have any? And just work from there.
Yeah. Or like, what's something you want to try that you've never tried before that maybe I can help you try? I think that, experimentation is so important. And I think that most people don't, or most trainers anyway, they want to help the person do it more perfectly. And so they don't let the person explore. And I feel like that was a big part of my learning curve when I was younger, is I didn't have a trainer for a while. And so I just would ride out in this field and I would be like, I want to do a hunches in, let me try. And that was even really before YouTube, right? So, but I'm, a little bit older. But
that's so cool. That's so cool.
I like to see it and be like, I want to try a hunches in. I want to see if I can do a head back, Might try it.
Yeah, that's the best thing. I mean, life is one big experiment, so why not go play around, right?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, I just wanted to ask about your freestyles. What are some of your favorite songs or music that you put together for your freestyles?
Oh, I have to say, probably my favorite one. I did with a horse that I bred and raised. Her name was Belle. Her show name was Winter Nebel, but she was doing a second level freestyle. And it was kind of a funny little story, because I qualified for championships here in California, and I went to the show and I was warming up, and the ring steward said, okay, it's your turn, go in. And you had to kind of go out of the warm-up arena, around a corner and into a cupboard. And so I go into the cupboard and the judge looks at me and says, I'm not ready for you. Go back to the warm-up arena. So I'm like, okay. So I go back to the warm-up arena. And this is championships, so it's kind of important, right? So I go back to the warm-up arena. And the ring steward says, what are you doing back here? Go back. God damn it, I'm going to make the judge mad at me. So I go back and she's not happy. And then she just tells me, okay, just go ahead and go. And she's really snarky, and I'm like, oh God, okay, great. So, but my music was Lady Gaga, Telephone, that song.
How fun.
And, a couple other songs that were in the same genre, but that was the big one. And so I always tell this to my clients that are nervous about showing, the judge is watching you kind of thing. And I always go, that judge was so not happy with me when I entered the arena, but I already realized that she wasn't going to be happy with me. So I was just doing it for myself. We're just going to go in there, have fun, do it for ourselves. And, by the end of the freestyle, she was clapping as I was going down center line to the music and having a ball. And I got like a 76 or something on that ride. So yeah, so it worked out great just riding for myself.
That's so beautiful. I got chills thinking about that. I love it. And what a beautiful way to shift the grumpiness of the judge, because they get like that. Right? They're human,
you know? Right? I was just probably had to go to the restroom or something.
Right? Yeah. Oh, gosh. And poor you being a ping pong back and forth, that couldn't have been fun either. So.
Oh, come on.
But well done just shifting, going, this is going to be for us and have fun. I love it.
Right.
That's the way it should be.
I think that we all need to remember that, I remember, this is kind of off subject, but I remember I had a group of young horses that I bred and trained and raised with my clients. And I was the first person on all of them. And, so they were like my little babies, and I was so excited to show them because they were all super fantastically talented. And so I remember after showing them for maybe part of the season, I had a trainer come up to me and he goes, Chemaine, do you like them a little bit crazy or do you make them a little bit crazy? And I was like, oh my God, that's really an interesting question. And then I was like, I think I'm making them crazy because I'm so excited. So I had to kind of tamper down my excitement and just ride like I was at home, and then everything went great. But it's funny because I didn't realize that was what it looked like until he said that. It was so funny.
Yeah, that's amazing to get that outside perspective and then to immediately shift within you. That's really nice to do.
Yeah. It took me a minute to realize, oh, I am the catalyst here. I'm the one causing all of this excitement. So, yeah, so it's such an interesting journey, isn't it?
Yes, that reminds me, one of my favorite trainers in California, actually, his name was David Ventura, and I got to ride with him a little bit. And one of the first clinics, he got a little embarrassed, but he was like, you have a hot seat, right? Because I was getting the horse really amped up. And I looked at him funny, and then he got embarrassed. I'm like, no, I totally know what you mean. I'm getting too excited.
Right? Exactly. I know. And it's funny how some people have that and some people don't.
Yeah. And that was just my nature growing up in New York. I was very high powered. Gotta go, do things. And now I'm like the complete opposite. I'm like way more mellow now. Of course, I know how to amp up the excitement. My inner child comes out when I play with my POA pony, and we run around together. And then when I realize it's getting too much, I breathe him back to calm, and then we do some nice back up, stretch, and then we create good boundaries that way. But it's so good to have that within you to play with your energy up and down, and the horses need that. And
it's pivotal.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time, right? Go out to ride your horse with a plan. And, I always tell my people that when I was a teenager, I was just as angsty and hormonal as any other teenager, and I'd go out there and I'd be like, I hope my horse is in a bad mood today because, and I had one horse that he really taught me to be patient. I either be patient or get bucked off. And I got bucked off more in that 1 year, I think, with that horse. And so people will now ask me, why are you so patient? How'd you get to be so patient? And I'm like, oh yeah, I had to learn the hard way. So shifting your energy is so important. I always tell people you have to be like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, So and be demanding and then patient and then praising and then, nope, that's not right. Do it again. And you have to constantly shift your energy throughout anything, with horses, because they're constantly shifting their energy in reaction to us, right?
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
It's a dance.
And I've shifted my way of thinking of like demanding and like making a horse do it to like kind assertiveness and just creating clarity. Like, this is what I'm asking. And
right.
then I wait. So that's been something I've shifted as well, instead of like expecting it right that second. And then the horse actually starts giving you more because you're creating more of a space to allow them to find the right answer, which is really fun.
Absolutely. I say that I ask for very small asks, and then I let the horse say yes to my ask, and then I praise them. And then if I ask for a bunch of small asks in the first 5 or 10 minutes of warm up, then the rest of my ride is, hey, what do you want next? Instead of, I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah, because then they don't feel drilled. Then they're like, oh, I'm getting praised and let's play more. I love that so much.
Yes, exactly. Cool.
Okay, so what are your top teaching tips that you'd like to share to elevate the horse world?
Oh, right. Okay. So all of my points involve positivity. So I had a discussion with somebody about toxic positivity the other day, and I thought it was funny. She's a New Zealander, and she said, all Americans have toxic positivity. And I'm like, really? I don't think that, but okay. But this is kind of on the same subject that we were just talking about. That I feel that riders expect their horse to be good and do the thing that they're asking them. And so because they're expecting them to be good and do the thing, they don't praise them often enough. And so I really feel like praise is my number one, thing, because if you're developing a partnership of a horse that wants to work with you, then you have to say, can you do this, please? Thank you. Good job. And then again, they're just asking to do the next thing. So praise is number one. And that's, again, the same thing, kind of, ask things your horse can say yes to, so you can build a habit for them to try for the good boy pat. Building habits is something that I really like to think about, what is that book, something about like 5 habits that successful people have, or something to that effect. Anyway, there's a book that has that title. And so I think about that in my teaching. What habits can I teach people or my horses to develop so that they know exactly what's coming? Or if I build a habit of these things, then when I add something to it, then you just default back to those same 3 things, So anyway, so that's number 2 probably. So number 2 is say yes to the rider. And as an instructor, we know that our riders are so self-critical, right? I mean, everybody is there in a lesson because they know that they need to work on something. They're not there to, because they have everything perfect. And many have so many fear issues, right? And so many people battle their fear, but they're still there. They're still passionate, And so I feel like a lot of instructors also fall into the pattern of that's wrong and that's wrong and that's wrong, and then they say it in that way, right? You're doing this wrong, or don't do this. I read somewhere that our brain doesn't have the capacity to learn from negatives.
Right.
And I'm not sure how true that is. I'm not a psychologist.
Yeah, I'm a hypnotherapist. So when you say, don't focus on the pink elephant, all you see is the pink elephant, right?
Yeah, right, yeah. Exactly.
And it's the same with animals. So if you're communicating with them and say, don't paw the ground, all they hear is, oh, paw the ground. Okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So I think that a lot of people that I hear teach like that. And so why can't we say, oh, but they're doing these other 5 things correctly, so let's just build on those. Okay, you have a nice leg, we need to get your hips moving a little better, or whatever, it is. And so that the person can build on their strengths and uplift them instead of making them feel like they should just quit.
Absolutely.
I can tell you how many instructors I've worked for over the years that that their students come out and they're like, I should just quit. I suck. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's not fun at all. No.
So I think that, like I said, all three of my things are basically be more positive and try to look for the good in things and make them better, right?
I love that. Thank you for sharing those.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have a story about a favorite lesson horse that you've worked with?
So lesson horses. So I did have one really old lesson horse in the very beginning of my career of teaching, and he was an old Appaloosa, and his name was Diamond, and his feet were like diamonds. The farrier would hold the nippers and in the best feet. But so he was a great one to start my career with, and he was super and challenged everybody a little bit, but was a pretty good boy. But I would say that over the years, my FEI horses have been my best teachers, my best lesson horses. I've always asked them to teach people like Piaffe, let's say. And so I always tell people that to me, Piaffe is like the ultimate half vault. And everybody's always trying to understand a half vault better, right? And so to me, the half vault is a shortening of the horse's frame from head to tail and a shortening of the horse's stride, keeping it active, right? And so Piaffe to me is those things, right? And so if I could put somebody on one of my advanced horses and show them what a Piaffe is and how to ask for it, then when they get on their horse that's learning how to half vault, they know what they're looking for, right? And they know that even if, because one of the things that I think people do the most is self-doubt when they're riding. And they go, I may not be asking right because my horse isn't doing it. And you go, no, you're asking right. You just have to keep asking until they get it a little bit, right? And then as soon as you feel a moment that they get it, celebrate.
Exactly. I always say act like they won the lotto, and then they'll go, oh, I did something good here.
Oh, there you go. I like that. I think they won the lotto. I love it. So I always would do that with my FEI horses or a canter pirouette or, something like that. And so it's good for my horses to have somebody, they had a little schoolmaster moment. And then also for my students to be able to learn those things and see a future in their riding.
Yeah, that's absolutely gorgeous. I remember the first time I rode Passage, I was in heaven. I was like, I don't want to do anything else now.
Right? Exactly.
And then I got to my greenies. I'm like, they don't do this yet. But it's a cool feeling to know that it's in there,
Right. Absolutely. It's so fun. Yeah. I remember my first horse that I trained to Grand Prix. I was riding her one day and I was doing a shoulder in. And I was asking her for more engagement, more energy in the shoulder in. And she started to Passage. And I was like, oh my God. And I did that, we won the lotto. Yeah. And then every time I asked for a shoulder in, she would start to Passage. And I was like, okay, that's cool. Good job. But let's go move forward. Because you can't, tell them, no, that's bad. Because then that would be contradictory to the future, right?
Yes.
So it can be such a delicate fine line of, yeah, that's great that you're offering that, but that's not what I asked for. And I learned that with a horse with flying changes early on. I had a Morgan that I showed, and I was teaching her flying changes, and I made the mistake of reprimanding her when she would do a flying change, when I didn't want it. And then, it was just a huge mess. And I learned that lesson, pretty early, thank God. So now when they give me a change, I'm like, yeah, okay, good job. But now we're going to counter. So it's so important to look ahead and know that, they can't just pop them like peanuts, I always say. You have to be able to ask for them. And second level is where you do your counter. And pre-St. George, they ask you again for counter. So you have to make sure it's still there.
I love that. And it really is a delicate fine line when you're playing with those different movements. So
yes.
Thank you for sharing those moments where you're like, oops, I may have messed it up, but we can still move forward from there. Because that's life,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, you have to pick it back up and go again.
So what's something that surprised you while you were teaching?
Oh, going back to what we were talking about a little bit before, I am always surprised at how fearful people are when they're riding. But at the same time, I respect so much their passion and their drive to be there. You know, I have this funny story about a lady that she still rides today. I see her once in a while. She's the sweetest person ever. But she started taking lessons from me, and I had this really great lesson horse. And she would come out on Sundays, and I didn't work on Sundays back then. And so she said, "What should I do?" And I said, "Go in the round pen and just lunge him in the round pen a little bit, free lunge him. And then if he's, feeling frisky, you'll get the frisky out, and then you can ride him." She goes, "Okay." So she calls me one Sunday, and she says, "Chemaine, I was lunging him, and he turned towards me, and he started to walk towards me, and I dropped the lunge whip, and I ran out."
Oh, sweet thing. Oh.
Oh my God, it was so cute. And then it gets better. She says, "And then he went over and he picked up the lunge whip and he shook it at me."
Of course he did. That's hilarious. I had a pony do that and start chasing the other horses.
Oh my God, that must have been great. Oh my goodness. But as fearful as she was to that horse just walking towards her and running out, now she still rides, and she's, been riding for, I don't know, 20 years now, so it's so cool to see that people are fearful, but they keep going. And I will have to say that I have never been a fearful rider. I've always been kind of like the crazy one that laughs when they're bucking and, everything. And this past year, I had a back injury. And so every time I was sitting the trot, and I train mostly Andalusians, like I said, so they're very smooth.
Sure.
But it was enough that every time I was sitting the trot, I used my core and my back would poke, or stab me,
Right.
And so I was really getting fearful that I was gonna fall, or a horse would romp, and I would really wrench it, and then I wouldn't be able to work, right? And so it was really interesting to feel that and go, oh, now I have some insight as to what my clients are feeling. I don't think that I've ever really projected a bad situation happening in the future before. And I found myself doing that. Oh, well, this could happen or that could happen, and then I'm like, oh my God, shush, throw the head trash away and just get on and see how that horse is. And everything was fine.
Good. So you did what I teach my students immediately, is flip your script. So immediately start thinking of all the good things that could happen instead. So you already had it inside you. That's awesome. Right.
And it's, and I mean, I've been teaching it for a long time, but to experience it was different. Right. And you get a little bit more insight into it. And so, so I've always told people that, it's like the developing habits thing, right? Is if you start to have this negative thought, I always ask people, but you have this negative thought you're thinking on and focusing on, but why can't it be this wonderful thing that's going to happen? If we focus maybe on something that could wonderful that could happen, then it might actually happen.
Exactly.
But we don't learn from negatives, but somehow we have so many negatives that we go to right away, right?
Yeah, it's our lizard brain keeping us safe. So
that right. I did see that. Yeah. The brain is telling us don't do that because it can. And I heard that it's like the brain doesn't filter what's a real fear and a not so real fear, or a perceived fear.
Yeah.
Right?
So basically, your mind doesn't know what's real or imagined. So that's why the hypnotherapy is so exciting, because you can then, after you've gone through and figured out the root cause of your issue, then you can basically program your mind for exactly what you want. And you can ride in your mind listening to a recording, and then you're practicing by just sitting there. It's the coolest feeling.
Totally.
Yeah.
When I was 20, I was in Europe with Hilda Gurney for 6 weeks. I rode, I think, 2 or 3 times maybe while we were there. And she she took lessons from Gabriella Grillo at her place in Germany. And then she would ask me to coach her about those lessons in the afternoon again. So I learned a little bit to coach Hilda Gurney, of all people. And I was just a lowly groom. But anyway, I rode so much better when I got home. But I was practicing in my mind, like you say, and absorbing all of that beauty of watching all of those Olympic level riders.
That's beautiful. And that's the way to go. I mean, when you're having any self-doubt, just focus on the exact picture that you want for yourself. So watching videos or watching clinics of the people that you admire will really help you translate that.
You know what? That's interesting. Quick story. I was taking a lesson from Robert Dover, and he said to me, he said, "What are you seeing right now?" Mm-hmm. And I was like, "Is this a trick question? Seeing? I mean, I don't want to be sarcastic, but the trees and the stand, I didn't know what he meant, you know." And then I realized, he means visualizing.
Yes.
And he said, "I want you to," but he used the word seeing, so I was kind of like confused. But anyway, so he said, "I want you to visualize Vallegro's extended trot, you know, and then try to achieve it instead of just thinking about what you think your horse can do." That was a really cool thing to think about, you know, and that made a lot more difference in what I was doing than just giving me mechanics.
Yes, right? Exactly. I call that riding into your future. And you have some clients that are really good with visuals and some people that are much better kinesthetic and some that are better auditory. So I tell them, I want you to feel it, I want you to see it, and I want you to hear the footfalls. So yes. You do like the full 3D immersion.
Yes.
And then your whole energy starts to take that on, and then your horse picks that up. Because they think in pictures, but they also feel your energy of it, and then that creates beautiful congruence inside and out. So
I love it. That's awesome. 3D picture. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you just ride into the future a few strides ahead. And that actually also helps with the what if negative scenarios, because you don't have time for that. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, we're focusing on this right now. Yep. And breathe and breathing. Breathing's key. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. I know.
So with all that, I know you talked a little bit about the lady who was nervous, but do you have a transformation story about a student that you'd like to share?
I don't think I really have a specific one, but I think that the most fun thing for me is to have a student that is Western or hunter jumper, or I want to say eventer, but eventers just don't love dressage. I was an eventer in my teenage years, so I know, but I think that that's the most fun is those people, and to teach them, because they all come in and they go, dressage is so boring. Or the hunter jumpers and the Western people say, well, all you do is just hang on their face. And I'm like, oh, I think that's when you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. That's why you say you have a release in there. There's releases.
Right. Yeah,
Yes.
Exactly. Number 4. So I think that's the most fun to me is to teach people that dressage isn't actually boring when you're doing it. It might be boring to watch training level all day, but it's not never boring to do. So I have one particular client that she did hunter jumper, and I moved to her area and she started taking lessons with me, and now she's riding, she's showing third level, and she loves dressage. And before she would have been like, I'm not doing that, I'd like to jump, you know? And so now she's realizing all the depth and challenges that come along the way that are so fun, though. You get so many great feels.
Absolutely. I love to think of it like a big moving puzzle, and it's just so much fun to play with. Yeah. Yes,
I always tell people I love puzzles, and to me, dressage, every horse, every client is a puzzle.
Perfect.
And so it's fun to figure them out.
I love that. Okay, Chemaine, if you could teach a master class to other instructors, what would the topic be, and what would be some of the key points?
Oh, okay. So I actually wrote a book last year, and and I put it on Amazon, and it's called 5 Steps to a More Harmonious Dressage Partnership. And in the book, so it's the 2 training pyramids. It's the horses dressage training pyramid and the riders training pyramid. And in this book, I'm talking about the correlation between the 2. So the horses training pyramid, the bottom step, the foundation, is rhythm. And the riders training pyramid, the foundation step is your posture or your position. So if you can have a strong position, then you can probably maintain a nice rhythm because you're not going back and forth and side to side, right? And on the riders training pyramid, on the horses training pyramid, suppleness is the second step. And on the riders training pyramid, it's flexibility. So if you're asking your horse to be supple, but you're not flexible enough to move with its movement, then you're not going anywhere. And on the horses training pyramid, connection or contact, I like to say that I think connection is a better word. It's a softer word to me. Contact, I in my mind, I spell with a K like it's German, and you're holding this contact. So I call it connection. And for the rider to maintain a good connection, they have to have a strong enough core engagement to be able to carry themselves in their own, I call it self-carriage. A rider has to have its own self-carriage in order to have a steady connection with the horse. So those are the 3 things that I would consistently work on. And those are like the habitual things that we were talking about earlier.
I love that so much, and I'll definitely check out your book. That's amazing.
Okay, cool. I love it.
Yeah.
I had fun writing it. It was like a exercise in developing, I guess, more of a philosophy, I guess, towards writing and how to approach it. And so it was really fun to do.
Totally. Yeah, I did that with my book. It's called Your Horse Believes in You.
Oh, cool. I love that title. Okay, I'll check yours out.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll do a little book exchange. I like it. So fun.
Okay.
So is there anything else that you'd like to add that I haven't asked you?
I don't think so.
You mentioned that you've started a podcast yourself?
Oh, yeah. So it's so funny because the owner's son here at the ranch that I work at, he said to me, he goes, Chemaine, you should have a podcast. And I go, oh my God, it's so funny. And somebody just mentioned that to me the other day. And so it's going to be kind of a cool blend of perspectives because I'm the, expert. And then my client Chelsea is the amateur rider, like the typical adult amateur rider. She's balancing family and career and trying to find some time to ride, and she's hilarious. So it's kind of fun that way. And then also my daughter is now 22 years old, and she's found a way to live on her own independently and have a horse. And the way she's doing that is she's living on a horse ranch and taking care of horses. And so it's kind of like all the different little perspectives from my age group to the middle age group to the 20-year-old and all of our challenges that we find in between. And so it's really fun. And my daughter has this, I've been raised in this sport and I know all the baloney about it. So she's a little bit cynical. And she has this one thing that I call kind of a skit, but she says, how to develop a better sitting trot. You have to be loose, but you have to be firm. And you have to be giving, but you have to be supportive. And you have to be all these contradictory statements that people will say that don't make an ounce of sense to the average rider. But they're actually kind of true. But you don't know that until you actually figure it out.
Totally. And just hearing that, it kind of makes people's heads spin. So that's pretty funny that she's keyed into that.
So that's the new venture with the podcast. And speaking of staying inspired, all of these little avenues of teaching and stuff make me learn more about how to deliver the information and try to help other people.
Brilliant. And what's the podcast called?
It's called Barn Bells. And Belle is the name of one of the horses that I trained to intermediate. And she was one of the horses that helped a ton of people learn how to do piaffe and pirouettes and all of that. And so that's it was my daughter's idea to call it Barn Bells, to kind of take her name into it.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. So that'll be launching on March 17th, the next week, and St. Patrick's Day. So I'm super excited. It's just been really fun to do. And as I'm sure you know already, and also, I'm excited to see how people like it.
Oh, I can't wait to check it out. This is wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it'll be cool.
More fun horse people sending out their light is very important to me. I love it.
Yes, we need to deliver that.
Okay, so my last question for you. If you were to create a billboard for other riding instructors to see, what's the one thing you would like to write up there?
Oh, it's kind of what I said earlier. So I said I'm not sure about what the wording would be or the slogan, but it has to be something to the effect of, as instructors, we are trying to help our riders, and it's our job, to help our riders. And I don't know, I guess a lot of people may not feel the same way, but I feel very strongly that it's my job to do that. So, but anyway, and I think that just the billboard has to say to other instructors, like, this is a job and we work for that person. We don't work only for ourselves, So
remember to work for your students, not just for yourself.
I think so. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
I love it. So cool. Well, I absolutely loved having you on the podcast. It was so wonderful to get to know you.
Thank you. It was fun to get to know you too.
Thanks. All right, listeners, thank you so much. I want you to please check out the show notes so you can learn all about Chemaine and her new podcast coming out. And remember to lead with kindness for yourself and for your horse. And may the horse be with you always.